Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Alik Nani binti Azizan, and today I would like to talk about the warning signs of major depression. But before I jump into the subject, I would like to ask you guys about something. What exactly is a depression? You probably heard of it, or probably know about it. But I would like to seriously ask you guys, what exactly is a depression? Do you even know what it feels like to have a depression? Do you even know if anyone have a depression? Do you even know if your closest one have a depression? But how exactly are we able to tell if someone have a mental health problems? As well as spotting certain patterns in people who's dealing with depression. Unfortunately, nowadays a lot of people still think that depression is just a feeling of sadness and doesn't seem to fully understand that depression is actually a serious mental health problems that could lead to dangerous issues to them and the people around them. But what exactly is depression? And how are we able to tell if someone have a mental health problems? To start with is how we should have able to fully aware and understand more different kinds of mental health problems that can actually affect people, which can include our closest one. We should also know and learn how to see if there are people who suffers mental health problems. There's actually a warning signs that can help us identify if someone have a mental health problem such as depression. To start with, let's begin with understanding what exactly is a depression. Depression is a mood disorder that causes an extreme feeling of sadness and loss of interest. Depression have two symptoms, physically and mentally. The physical symptoms are easily feeling tired and low of energy to do anything. People who have a depression tend to misunderstood because most people think that people who have a depression is just being lazy, which is not true. And second of all, extreme changes in their appetite, appearances, and weight. People who have a depression tends to change their daily routines as much as they change how they look and their weight. And lastly, doing physical harms to the body, such as self-harm. Many people who have a depression tends to do a self-harm to their body as a way as a coping mechanism as self-defense, thinking that it is a satisfying way to cope with the pain. And mental symptoms, having anxiety, mood changes, and thoughts of dying in daily basis. Now that you know what is depression, let's start to identify certain warning signs of major depression. First off, they feel helpless and hopeless. People who are depressed actually struggle with feeling of despair and self-loathing, including the difficult times of them feeling positive because their emotional response are difficult to express themselves. They can appear to be positive. However, mentally they are suffering with feeling of self-loathing and worthless because they are focusing on their own flaws, which can actually affect them physically. And second, the unexplainable pain and obsessively talk about death. Depression not only affects people's minds, but also physically, their bodies as well. These symptoms can be psychosomatic, which refers to the real physical symptoms that arise from or influenced by the mind and emotions. They would do the extreme ways to cope themselves by self-harming, and at some point, it can drive to death. Given the severity of major depression, there are some ways to treat someone who suffers from it, and one of them would be medication. Believe it or not, depression also have their own medications called antidepressants. It is most frequently prescribed medication for depression and other mental health problems such as anxiety and panic attacks. And second of all, going to different kinds of therapy. Going to different kinds of therapy that is recommended by the professional and psychiatrists can help diagnosing and treating different kinds of mental health conditions. And lastly, self-love. Self-care can play an important role in managing symptoms of depression, and learning about self-love can help them overcome challenges and battling with depression. Learning that they can accept their own flaws and be themselves is one of the medications that can help them overcome depression. Believe it or not, depression can actually affect millions of people, including our closest one. However, there are treatment options to help them, those who have a depression. We can actually play the role by giving them support and love that they deserve. Which is why we have to be aware and open-minded that depression is actually a mental health problem.